Hi, Diane. We're observing a minute or two of silence.
We're observing a minute or two of silence.
Okay. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I'm able to hear you well. Could you turn down your sound just a little bit, please?
Sure.
Okay, try it again now.
Are you having some feedback problems?
Yeah, just a little feedback problem. Okay, one more time.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you okay. You're still a little too loud. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, am I too low or too loud or?
No, you're fine.
Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Joe Firestone for Real Progressives. And it's 8 o'clock on Saturday night, okay, or 8:03, which is the time I usually come on Saturday night. My guest for tonight is a real progressive, Diane Moxley. And Diane is running for the Green Party nomination for Congress in the very busy New Jersey 7th District. And I'd like to start off by asking her to introduce herself very briefly, and then to set the context of the race before us. So, Diane, will you begin for us, please?
Sure. I'm running in New Jersey's 7th Congressional District. I am running on the Green Party line. This district has been controlled by Republicans for years. And it's an election that is being watched. It is a district that's going to be targeted. We need some Greens in Congress, so I will be running in CD7.
Okay, so we're experiencing a little video delay as well as a sound breakup. I think it's on your side, Diane. Is that right, everybody? Okay, so the district has been controlled by Republicans for years. Okay, and you are also running against, or you may be running against, a non-establishment candidate on the Republican side, Lindsey Brown, I believe. Is that correct?
Lindsey Brown is a progressive alliance, and there, in the primary season on the Democratic side, there was 7 Democrats in the race. 3 have dropped out. The 2 women candidates have dropped. So right now we're down to 2 progressive Democrats running in the Democratic primary. There is an establishment Democrat, although he has not held office. There seems to be a candidate that is getting the establishment Democrat backing. He has a State Department background, national security background. So if you, there was a story that broke during the week about the NSA, State Department, establishment Democrats that are being scattered throughout the country. Well, CD7
Yes.
certainly has one of them right now, and I'd be happy to challenge that candidate if he is elected as the Democrat. But unfortunately,
he is facing a serious challenge himself, isn't he?
Leonard Lance, the incumbent?
Yeah, Leonard Lance.
Yes, there's one candidate running against him. So in New Jersey, our Republican and June 5th.
Also, Peter Jacob, isn't he running as well?
Yes, he is one of the Democrats I was referring to as a progressive Democrat. Unfortunately, Democrats are doing across the country, the front runner with funding and media attention, who I view as the establishment Democrat, which is Tom Malinowski.
Yeah. Unfortunately. So in the primary, Peter Jacob is an underdog, not having the backing of the party. Okay,
No.
And then if he should be successful, he will face both the Republican candidate and yourself in the race.
Yes.
So it should be a very tough race for him, and a very tough race for you also, since the Republicans have had control of the district for some time. So let's get to your
I'm sorry. I was just going to say this district has been changing. That's why it is targeted this year as a race that's going to get a lot of attention.
Well, I've heard that
Nationwide. There's also a new influx of immigrants that are now eligible, 20% in the district. So that change has been creating a more movement to the left.
Okay, and that's good for you, of course.
Yes.
So let's get to your platform. The first item I noticed on here was getting money out of politics. And you said that you're not going to take any PAC or corporate money, and you'd work to reform the electoral system. And so could you tell us what you would do to try to reform the electoral system?
Well, I would look into an overhaul of the Electoral College. I would also look into instant runoff voting, so people have other options and feel that their vote is not wasted. And as you said, I would take no corporate PAC money. One thing that makes the Green Party different is the Green Party corporate PAC money But even when we have these progressive Democrats running throughout the country, once they get to the general election and they're running in coordinated campaigns, if they're operating under the Democratic Party, that's a party that still, refused to remove from the DNC platform the desire to take corporate money. So even if you have a candidate, one of the, let's say a PAC money, once they're taking that coordinated campaign money, they are taking corporate money. So no matter what, at any stage in the game, I will be funded by individuals. We will be powered by the people.
Yes. Okay, I understand. In terms of the reform of the Electoral College system, that's a very, very long-term goal, though, isn't it? In other words, it's not something that can be done by Congress alone, and that's assuming that the left was to gain control of Congress. Okay.
Yes.
And so we're basically talking about a constitutional amendment here, aren't we?
Well, it's also just about getting the conversation started, getting to people to get on board with, yes, a significant change that would be something long-term and would not be able to be done easily, but something that is just, it's not in our political discussions today, especially not in our current two-party system.
Right.
So I would make sure these discussions are had.
Okay, and we do need to introduce that into the political system, I think. Should we try to pass some new campaign finance laws, in your judgment? Okay, and if we should, how would we ensure that the Supreme Court was not able
Absolutely,
to
I know that's
overrule those laws?
Well, that's the problem we have right now. And of course, we need to have a Supreme Court that is a lot more progressive and to the left to protect anything that we're going to try to move forward. But right now, yeah, we have a huge hurdle with Citizens United. So as you know, some people talk about the move to amend movement, but we can also, of course, have candidates that are going to take pledges to not take corporate money. And obviously I would be one of those candidates. So it's a step in the right direction.
That's true. It is a step. Have you heard about the exceptions clause of the Constitution? It's in Article 3, Section 2.
You're breaking up, so I didn't hear the flow. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. Have you heard about the exceptions clause in the Constitution?
Since my con law class in law school, but what exactly would you be referring to in regards to that?
Okay. In Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution, there's a phrase which gives the authority to Congress to limit the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. So, in other words, one way to handle the problem of actually getting money out of politics is to pass new campaign finance laws and have the exceptions clause in those finance laws. So the Supreme Court would simply be out of the game and would but no longer be a problem with respect to those laws.
I never thought of that. I'm actually writing this down right now to look into it further.
You're not the only one who's never thought of it. When I introduce it to a candidate, okay, in these interviews, I generally get the same kind of a reaction. Oh, gee, I'm not really familiar with that. And I think I've gotten that actually from everybody, including Tim Canova. Well, actually, I didn't get it from Tim, and the reason why I didn't get it from Tim is because he had heard from me earlier about the exceptions clause to the Constitution. And so by the time that I interviewed him, he knew about that clause. And when he began to talk about it, it kind of surprised me a little. And it surprised me even more when he said that he'd heard about it from me. But his reaction to it was that it should work. It seems completely straightforward. Okay, and if he got into office, then he would use it.
Well, I made a note of it. I wrote what you said down, and I'm definitely going to be looking into that. So if that's possible, that sounds like a great angle. So thank you.
Okay. So the next part of your platform is that you are for universal health care, which would include preventative health care, also mental health and dental and vision and prescription medication. So no one will have to go either bankrupt or worse over medical bills. And of course, you know about the fatalities problem from lack of insurance. I take it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so can I assume that you're a supporter of H.R. 676, which is John Conyers' Medicare for All bill? Or I should say, it was John Conyers' bill, okay, until he had to leave the Congress. Yes, it was John Conyers' bill. He had been introducing it since, I think, was 2004. But since he left the Congress, it's been taken over by Keith Ellison since. And so Keith Ellison is the senior sponsor of that. And at this point, it's being co-sponsored by something like 120 Democrats in the House.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a Medicare for All bill. It includes all of the things that you stated here. Okay, if there is anything wrong with the bill, it may be in the taxation provision in the bill, which may not actually be necessary to pay for the Medicare for All bill. Okay, but that is in John Conyers' bill, and as it stands now, it would involve a wealth tax of 1% on stock but transactions added to the taxes we have now to pay for it. Okay, and I put quotes around to pay for it.
Yeah, I got you with the MMT.
Okay, so can I assume can I assume that you would support that bill?
I know that there are some concerns with the steps to implementing the full bill. So I might accelerate that because there were concerns about, of course, we want to protect jobs of the insurance industry, but I was a little bit concerned with the lag time that could be created with those stages. So that is an area of, but otherwise, yes, I would be going for something similar to and this bill, but I would prefer to see it tweaked in that way. But yes, my platform calls for an improved law.
Okay, so I have a question about the tweaking for a delay. Okay, let me see
Yes.
if I can help this a bit by reducing my volume here. Let's see if that will help things. And now my computer is being stubborn. Okay, so to go on,
Whatever's wrong with my computer.
It could also be wrong with mine.
Sorry, what was that? Okay.
Okay, so here we are. Is that better?
Oh, delay? Okay.
Okay. Okay, so the question, I had about that is that
Yes.
it is related to the fatalities problem. There are now, by current estimates, probably something like 38,000 fatalities per year that still afflict the people who don't have any health insurance. Okay, it was at one time, back in 2005, the fatalities number was at 45,000. And then it went higher, but through the crash period, when people were losing the health insurance they were getting through corporations. Okay. At that time, the fatalities probably went up to between 53 to 55,000 per year. And then the Affordable Care Act started to bring down the fatalities again, but they probably never got lower than the 38,000 per year. So if there's lag time, if there's a phasing in, as there is in Bernie Sanders' Senate bill, which would actually phase in over 4 years, it wouldn't be fully in effect, until the fourth year. You would keep getting fatalities due to lack of insurance in the thousands for the 3-year period. Yes. Prior to the fourth year. So the question is, for the sake of jobs in the insurance industry, is that really worth the fatalities that people would perhaps have to suffer in order to keep those insurance industry jobs? And I raise that question in the following context as well. There was an econometric study done by the now National Nurses Union in 2008. It was reported on in 2009. And what it did was to deal with the likely impact of HR 676 at that time. And their estimate was that there would be a net gain of 2.5 million jobs from actually passing that bill. Now, the Obama administration shrugged off that study and didn't want to hear, of Conyers' bill anyway. Took it off the table because he was concerned about the jobs in the insurance industry. So, in other words, people have been dying needlessly since 2009.
Yes.
At the rate of sometimes 53,000 a year and 55,000 a year. I calculated what the likely deaths were.
Wow.
During the period of the administration from 2009 to 2016, my estimate was 356,000 people died who did not have to die, but due to lack of insurance over this period. That's an enormous death toll, 100 times more than we suffered in the 9/11 attacks.
Wow.
So I'm raising the question of waiting in that kind of context.
Yeah, we can't wait. We can't. And
we can't wait. We have to pass it. We have to implement it inside a year. Well, Diane's going to have to come in again. Here she is. As soon as I see her picture, I'll put her into the broadcast again. Here she is. Okay.
Up.
Oh, here she is. Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, you're here.
Great.
I think that we're okay again. Okay, so what I was saying is I think in view of the history here, we have to implement this, I think, as quickly as we can, certainly within a year's time. Now, I don't really see any difficulty in that.
No, we've been waiting for this for obviously forever because we've never had a significant we've never had universal health care.
No,
so we can't
wait.
You reported are just, those are horrific. And that is the issue that I have with the Conyers bill. There is a delay. With the Bernie bill, there's a delay, and it's about protecting jobs in the insurance industry, and we can't wait.
No, there's no delay. In the Conyers bill, there was no delay. No, the Conyers bill did not have any delay.
With the issue I do have with the Conyers bill, it's privately run but publicly funded. I think it can be, we have to have a public administration, and maybe we can grab some of the workers from the insurance industry that can fit in the right jobs. But we need health care, not health insurance. So that would be my preference, is not privately delivered. And that's where a lot of the screw-ups.
You're saying that you don't want the actual care. Okay, so you're saying that what you would like to see is a national health service bill of the kind they have in the UK.
Yes. And there's no reason that we need to have the middlemen that are still profit driven. We need to that's just got to be cut out. Absolutely.
Okay, so I think that position is a very reasonable one, okay, and an interesting one. And I'd like to see you actually run on it. In other words, right now, it's not in your platform. In other words, the wording of your platform.
Well, it was worded as a universal health care plan. So I will make sure any concerns that you have are clearly articulated in our platform. So
Okay,
that
well,
it might not have.
I want to be clear to
Yes.
the following extent that I think HR 676 is a very good bill from the delivery point of view. Okay, if it's administered in the same way Medicare is today, it would be very, very efficient with overhead costs running between 1 and 3% of actual costs, even including the fact that the delivery would be from the private sector. It would still be enormously efficient compared to what we have now. Okay, and more effective, of course, as well.
Sure,
because
it's better than what we have. But
cover everybody. Okay, it is a universal healthcare bill. There is an argument for it as being the preferable choice to a national healthcare system. Okay, and that is that when you look at the English speaking countries, fairly similar in culture, okay, to each other. The only one that has a national healthcare system is the UK. The others, Australia, but New Zealand, also Canada, all still have the delivery systems as basically private systems. So the only thing that they've socialized is the insurance industry. They have not socialized the provider industry. Okay, so there's an argument that says that that's more compatible with the kind of cultural outlook that we have as Americans, and would actually work better. And now, when you compare the statistical outcomes of the UK system to the statistical outcomes of Canada, New Zealand, Australia, they're very close together. So it isn't clear that the English are getting a better outcome from a national healthcare service, okay, as opposed to the other nations that are culturally similar to ourselves and but to the UK. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, I personally would rather have a national health service. Okay, I just think in the long run it probably is better, and I also think the reason why the UK is not showing a better result than some of the others is because the Conservatives have been continuously interfering with the national health service system for a long time. So it hasn't been able to realize the potential of such a system. Okay, so that's what I think about it. But I can see the reasonableness of the arguments for a Medicare for All system of the kind that is in HR 676. But I'm very glad to have your more comprehensive perspective on this as well. I welcome that perspective as getting introduced into the discussion because it would be good to have an alternative that is to the left of the Medicare for All alternative. So people are able to debate which of those two is actually better. That's a lot better situation than we have now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just my perspective is that it's profit driven when you have the insurance industry involved, and this needs to be about people and healthcare and not profit.
I agree. Okay, so the next item on your platform is not really a single item; it's a huge number of items, and it's the Green New Deal. You're absolutely for a Green New Deal. Not surprising, since you're running on the Green Party ticket. And you talk about building sustainability, renewables, having a moratorium
Absolutely.
on fracking, and shifting industry and creating real jobs. So I have to ask you, what are some of the specifics of what you're thinking about in this category? Because it's very broad, okay, in general category, and I think the voters would like to hear the specifics of it.
Yes, and I just want to make a little correction. The on fracking, that's should act fracking. So yeah, we're talking about, climate change cannot be dealt with tiny bits of incrementalism. We are in a state of catastrophe right now.
Yes,
so there is, again, just like we were talking about the fatality rates with having healthcare, well, we all just, free fall, just can't wait. So we have a plan, and yes, in my website, which will be out shortly, but I have the website with, there is a link right now for volunteers to have a donations link. We are working on, and I've actually already have it drafted, a detailed plan and time of getting off fossil fuels by, in my opinion, it has to be done in under. There's some plans go 25 years and higher. In my opinion, if, whatever we can do to expedite it even faster than that, we just can't. Doing just feels like is not enough anyway. So yes, we need to. Part of that will be banning fracking. We'll be investing money into renewables. We were doing that even a little bit in the beginning of the Obama administration, but things have really fallen by the wayside, even during the Obama administration. And now,
sure,
we're all losing faith right now with this current administration, but this needs to be radically. And, along with that, when we're just addressing climate change and environmental impacts, we also have to take really drastic measures to really look at and analyze the effects of a Martin New Deal platform. If you have any other specific questions, it'll be pretty extensive. We've been working on it for a bit, but we did just get the endorsement yesterday. We had our plans out to the public and out to our voters.
Okay, so did you say you released your plan to your voters?
Well, it's in our website, which is about to launch, but the gist of it is what I've just spoken about. But there'll be more, just a little bit more of a comprehensive plan there.
Okay, so can I ask you how you're going to create the jobs? In other words, what kind of legislation would you try to pass to create the jobs?
Well, I think having a jobs bill where we can invest in jobs, building a green infrastructure, they would be building the renewable infrastructure that we need. So we're not just talking about solar panels, we're talking about wind, geothermal, just moving forward beyond, we've been stagnant. This needs to be pushed. It needs to be pushed strong and hard. So with a jobs program that would be investing in education and technology and jobs.
Okay, so do you have a federal job guarantee in your jobs program? That is a federal job guarantee
What
at
exactly
a living
would
wage.
you mean by that? If you could expand on what, to see if we're
Okay,
on the
it's
same
really
page.
okay. It's very straightforward. Federal Jobs Guarantee Program is one that offers a full or part-time job to anyone who would like to have one, okay, and is capable, okay, of holding down a job. So, in other words, certain disabled people would perhaps not be able to fit into such a category, though there would be many people who are now on disability support who would find a place in a job guarantee program and who would want to find a place in a job guarantee program where there were meaningful jobs that were federally funded but were locally defined to fulfill the needs of a green economy, to fulfill healthcare needs, elder care needs, taking care of the problem of the food deserts that we have in our cities, doing various other things for the public purpose, but with a great emphasis on the green jobs. By some calculations, including mine, there are still 24 million people out there who would take full-time jobs if they were there for the asking. But they've dropped out of the labor force, so they don't fit into the U3 statistics. They don't fit into the U6 either. But beyond what those happen to show, there are another 13 million people, altogether a total of maybe 24 million people who do not have jobs. Okay, now in estimating at 24 million people, I'm different from some of the other people who follow, an MMT standpoint. For example, in a job guarantee report that was released a few days ago by Pavlina Chernyeva, the estimates for the number of jobs that would be given out by such a program was something like 15 to 16 million. I think that estimate is still off somewhat, and the number would be actually more like 24 million at the start, of such a program. That number would be going down over time because the boost that would be given to the economy by such a program would get the private sector really geared up, essentially running at full steam for the first time since the Second World War. And so that would mean that many more people would go to a private employment situation where, because there was a living wage for the job guarantee, all employers in the private sector would have to pay more than the living wage under the job guarantee. Okay, and when I say a living wage under the job guarantee, there are a number of candidates who are running across the country now who are talking about job guarantees of $18 an hour, $22 an hour, $20 an hour. These are even a candidate in Georgia who's advocating a living wage under a job guarantee program, okay, of $20 an hour in the Georgia 10th district. Okay, so these ideas are out there now. They're gathering steam, and a lot of people are for a job guarantee. And just to speak of your district in particular, I don't know whether Peter Jacob has come around to that particular position yet. But if he hasn't, he's close. So if you would like to be politically competitive in that area, okay, I think you're going to have to look into that one.
Yeah, no, I'm taking a note of that. So it would work with my ideas of program. It's all connected and it's all related. So
it is. It's all connected and it's all related. Yes, right.
And yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you have two other items on your platform: immigration reform, and also demilitarization. Okay, I don't know that we're going to have time to go over those two today because I have a hard deadline, okay, of 1 hour on this, this broadcast, and we've gone now for 48 minutes, okay. But I do want to mention that you've been very, very active in the foreign policy sphere, and you are for ending the wars, taking very vigorous measures, okay, to end the wars. And you also have live streamed extremely convincingly on the problems in the Middle East with respect to the Palestinians and the actions of the Israelis and violations of human rights by the Israelis, and the absolutely deplorable situation over there with respect to that. And I recommend your live streams to everybody who is watching today because they are very, very compelling on this particular subject. Okay. So I think you're a compelling candidate in the foreign policy area. Okay, extremely strong in that area. Now, with respect to the DREAM Act, you've been a fighter for a clean DREAM Act. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that.
A clean DREAM Act means... no extras, just get our DACA youth, out of this legal limbo so they can move forward. Because what was happening with the DREAM Act, with the Democrats and the Republicans, they were, playing political games.
Yeah, they're playing ping pong.
Connecting it to all of these other issues that are completely irrelevant to protecting these young people and giving them status now, ASAP.
Right. Okay, I entirely agree on that. One thing I'd like to see is somebody actually running on a platform of simply giving the dreamers their citizenship. To all intents and purposes, they are Americans. They are culturally Americans. There are many of them who have been there for most of their lives. There are some who've been in military service and are now being deported after being in military service. This whole thing is a travesty, and we need to drop it. We need to give them their citizenship right now and forget about the technicality. And then also create a clean path for the other immigrants.
Absolutely.
We need them here. They've already created great contributions to our country, and we need them for the Green New Deal.
Absolutely.
We need people for the Green New Deal.
Yeah, we would have a problem if there was mass deportations of people that are contributing to our economy right now.
We would have a big problem. We would have a big problem. And these political games, holding the lives of people hostage in this way, are just shameful political games. Okay, so before we get to the end, I'd like to introduce you to something else. Okay, now you know, because of the orientation, of RP, that we have a particular approach to economics here, and that we believe that the government can pay for anything it wants to pay for. Okay. Now, if it has too large a deficit, of course, there can be inflation problems. So there is an inflationary brake on this. But short of an inflationary brake, there are no solvency problems. But once you've said that, and once you've explained that taxes do not actually fund spending, then the question still arises: how will spending be funded by Congress? What are the specifics of how it would be funded? Not only in terms of appropriation bills and CR bills, which essentially mandate spending by the federal government, but also in terms of laying down very direct ways of placing the money that is mandated to spend into the Treasury spending account. Right now, there's a whole bunch of fooling around about that, in the sense of collecting taxes, which do not fund spending, selling bonds, which do not actually fund spending. In other words, they may make room for spending, but they do not actually fund it, because the funds are actually destroyed before they get to the Treasury's spending account of the Treasury. So what I did a few months back is I created an approximation to legislative language that could be placed as boilerplate in every appropriations bill and CR bill is passed by Congress. And just for a second, I'm going to go solo with this the language so you can see it on the screen. So you can see it's two sentences. These sentences are probably a little complicated to just give people in an open forum, or if you're in a debate, okay, or something like that. When people hear this, they're going to do a double take and they'll scratch their heads. And it's not something that you can easily use an answer to the question of how you're going to pay for it. But it is language that can go into bills. And the name for this is Overt Congressional Financing. And it both funds any current bills and also repays the national debt over time. Okay, now you might ask, why should someone who believes that there's no problem with the national debt want to repay the national debt? And the answer is that most people believe the national debt is a problem, and I don't have the 10 or 15 years it's going to take to educate them to the fact that it really is not a problem, and they should not be believing that. So basically, what I want to do is demonstrate to people that it is no problem by beginning to pay off the national debt and continuing to pay it off. Because so much the national debt is short-term in character, within roughly 6 months' time, we would pay off actually roughly $4 trillion worth of the national debt, which would demonstrate to people in a very short time that actually the national debt is no problem. So what I want to do now is take this off the screen and put in I'm putting in the same thing, sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Okay, this is briefer version, which is in the form of a response to the question, your programs look expensive, which they're going to do, Diane. In other words, your Green New Deal is going to look like it's expensive. So you're going to have to answer the question, how you're going to pay for it. And this gives a one-sentence answer. And I'm not going to go through it here because we've got only a very short amount of time now. But, okay, this is a briefer answer than the language I put up at first. But I also have a still briefer answer here. And you can, kind of take a glance at that. After the broadcast, I will see that you get all of these things.
Okay, great.
But here now is the briefest answer of all. And that one I'll read out because it'll take me only a few seconds. Your programs look expensive. How are you going to pay for them? And the true and at the same time very brief answer is, we're Congress. We'll just order the Federal Reserve to give Treasury the money. That's really all that it's about. That's all that the legislative language is about. So I think that in a debate where you have to give a one-liner, an answer to a question, or you've got 30 seconds to answer a question, I think this is a very effective way to answer that. So our time, is now up. I offer you the option to come back again for a question, an answer period. If you'd like one, we're going to have a whole hour, of Q&A with our people.
That'd be great.
And we can do that in a few weeks, if you like, or even a shorter time. And we can go into these things then in a shorter amount of time.
Okay, sure.
But for
and
now,
we talk more about foreign policy and Palestine and our horrific foreign military bases, 800 of them in over 80 countries throughout the world. So maybe in another segment we can have other discussions, but I thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I would be happy to talk about that, and I'd like to put that on the agenda for a future session as well, and also give you a chance to say more about the immigration reform ideas that you have.
Sure.
Okay?
Yes, but thank you, and thank you for your insight, and I took
Okay, so it was a pleasure, Diane. I'm going to end us now.
Okay. Have a good
And thank
night.
you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much for coming.